we're gonna start by talking about, we're gonna be working on this golden flower thing, which is so cool, this ancient thing. And the cool thing is it's exactly like neuroscience. That's what's so cool about it. So we're gonna be talking about neuroscience, which honestly I find a little bit boring, but it's not. It really isn't boring. Um, I used to be all into science and I was so unhappy. So now I just use science to prove what I'm interested in. I've had a flip around, you know. So, Aaron, can we have well, before we do that, why don't we check in? How is everybody doing? Anybody want to share anything before we start about your power shields or anything?
I would like to share, as usual. I like to jump in there. So I'm really stressed out lately, but because of this work that Marina and I are doing, and all of us are doing as well, I'm usually when I'm stressed out, I like grind my teeth in my sleep, and I just have issues. So I'm still very grounded, and we've been working with my power animals, and I'm much more balanced than ever before in my life, especially during a time of stress. And so I'm really super grateful for that. I don't have words for how grateful. So then with my power shield, I get stuck. Like I'll make progress and I get stuck, and I make progress and I get stuck. So I'm stuck, but this is what I have so far. I've drawn,
Oh, cool.
there's my bear.
Oh, nice.
That's bear.
Oh, that
Yeah.
is so
Wow, I
And then
love that
this
bear.
is my snake. And that's supposed to be raccoon. I was really sucking at that one. So I'm going to just trace it with a photo from a photo, but that I'm going to use a wood burner and burn them on and like do shading with it and stuff. And I'm going to do raccoon's face. I found this awesome picture of raccoon going like that. And I'm going to burn that right here really big. So that's my power shield so far.
Does anybody else want to share their power shield? Just for fun.
I haven't made mine yet. I will share.
I have a sketch, but I can't get off the machine to find it.
We'll just have to believe you, Kat.
Yeah, somewhere around here. Oh, hidden powers.
And does anybody else want to share anything about their power shield? Well, I'd like to share my power shield. Here's my power shield.
Ooh.
And the sun got way bigger just because it did. And then I tried to redraw these. The cat just looked like a fat pig. So I decided to cut out my original because I'm really like not an artist. I'm not like Eric. I'm not. And so and then I wanted to put in plants, but so I drew them in kind of in black, so you can't really see it. So that felt really good. And then this side, in summer, I added stuff that I got from my journey and stuff, but in summer, water became, I'm going to make one of these blue because water is blue to me. And I'm going to make another one red because I realized that the water in my body is my blood.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt very cosmic to me anyway. So it was like how to work with the elements. So that, because for me with this, I find it a little confused. This is like chakra based, how this is. But for me, like, earth is green, water is blue, you know what I mean? So it helps me work with the medicine, and we can't call it medicine wheel, they're medicine circles with the medicine circle, because indigenous people never had wheels. So why are we calling them medicine wheels? That's us imposing ourselves. We don't want to do. So. And then with my power shield, I wanted to make a little cloud over the rainbow. And then I decided to adapt Beth saying, I can visualize, because that overwhelm me trying to
Oh,
get a cloud in there. So, and now I want to get some kind of glue and put it over it, because this is a piece of paper and it's kind of coming off. So I want to seal it all.
You
And
can
then
get an
I might
easy
do
like
something on the
spray
side.
shellac. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then I might do something on the sides too. I haven't quite gotten that finished yet, but anyway, that's what I'm doing.
Well, as far as the paper, you can get this fixative that you just spray on, and it's really easy. And then it doesn't, you're not brushing, and you're not going to mess anything up. You just spray it on. That's easy to do.
Cool, thank you. Trying to see if everybody's here. Well, everyone who's here who's on time, because we have to be punctual, because we live in the world of time. I mean, that is interesting about the work. Like, we live in the world of time, and then there's cosmic time, which is all, has different rules. We have to apply the right rules to the right places. Erin, could I get the brain slide? So the one of the actual brain. So we're going to be talking, forgive me for talking science. I'm as bored by it as hopefully some of you are, but it is actually interesting how it says the exact same thing as mysticism. So it's just a way to work with different models. So we have the right side of our brain and the left side of our brain. And the right side of our brain is a parallel processor. And so that's the part of us that keeps us in the present moment. And the left side of our brain is called a serial processor. So, and most of this information is in that book. So don't worry about taking notes. If you're really into it, you can order that book. Most of it is in there. And if you can talk to it. So
I actually found a PDF online of the book you.
yeah, there's tons of books out there, but that's just one that I think it's like, she writes in a way that you can actually understand it. Some of these books, they write in a way that you can't understand it.
Oh no, I meant The Secret of the Golden Flower.
Oh, good. Great. Yeah, because we've worked with that before. The Secret of the Golden. It's a very ancient, very powerful thing. And it'll blow all our minds. So then the left hemisphere is called a serial processor. So it takes in information and it compares it to the past and then brings the information to the present. So our right side of our brain and our left side of our brain are different that way. And the primary cells of the brain are called neurons. And neurons have the capacity to communicate with thousands of other neurons through a network. And anxiety and negative feelings are created by the cells within our brain. And the brain has two thinking systems. It has a higher cerebral cortex, which you can see as the neocortex. And then it has something called the limbic system, which is a more primitive part of the brain. Because our brains there's three parts of our brain: the reptilian brain, the mammalian brain, and then the cortex and the neocortex. And the neocortex is where all those monks, and they meditate and they're also calm and everything. So we're trying to work on that part of our brain. We're trying to develop that part of our brain through this work. And so it's interesting to look at this stuff physiologically within and so the information we receive from the world enters through our limbic system. So the limbic system is how, like, when we get triggered or shocked or even happy, but when we're happy, that's not usually a problem. Sometimes it can be a problem. And so the limbic system, it says there's the amygdala and the hippocampus, and the amygdala is the safety part of us. And so the first thing we go, oh my God, am I safe? And then the hippocampus part of us is the part of us that can learn. And if we don't feel safe, we can't learn, which is what post-traumatic stress is, basically. It's a simplified version of what is post-traumatic. So then, or repetition compulsion, why we keep doing the same stupid thing over and over again. So the point of doing this work is to not do the same stupid things over again, just do new stupid things and then learn. So the point is just to keep learning about things and not stuck. And so the limbic system is why we feel stuck. And so we truly, truly, truly are feeling creatures who think. We are not thinking creatures, we are feeling creatures because of this limbic system way that that's the first part of us, it takes in information. And so the limbic system is pretty much developed when we're born, and it never matures. It never grows up. It's always the same darn thing. And the higher cerebral cortex can develop and mature. So that's why we're trying to work on our neocortex. So when we do have emotions, it's imperative to allow ourselves to think about our emotions, process them, and do healing work. Because if we're just led by our emotions, we're not going to be led in the right direction, unfortunately. So it's also important to allow ourselves our emotions, because they're like a pipe. And if you block it, something will give. So we need to process and value our emotions for our mental health. And so recently, literally within the last 5 years, because I studied stuff like so many years ago, there's new neurology coming out, and there are 2 things that are relevant for us, and it's called neurogenesis. And neurogenesis, neuro means brain, genesis means rebirth, and it's the ability to grow new neurons, and this helps us heal trauma. They used to think, oh, you're just stuck with what you got, but you can literally grow new brains, grow new parts of your brain. And then neuroplasticity is the ability to rearrange and create new connections. So what we talked about before about the network and all that stuff. So there's basically 2 ways to work with yourself. One is to grow new brains, new brain cells, and the other one is to work on connecting with the matrix or the circuitry within our whole body. And we do this through mindfulness, and we have the ability to change which cells are communicating, and we can literally change our anatomy by doing this work. And so that's kind of interesting that now science is proving what, of course, we've known all along, but whatever. So it's interesting to think of the physiology of the brain. And there are 3 things in our brains. We feel our emotions, we think of our thoughts, and then we have our physiological response. And so that's when we get triggered, we're upset, we're like, oh, that fucking asshole just cut me off on the road. And then we're in a rage and our body's all stressed out. And so part of this is about, we feel our emotions, and by thinking about how we think about our thoughts, we have the possibility to also physiologically, we can change our bodies and our brains. We can change our responses to things by knowing that we can think about our thoughts and not just go down the rabbit hole. I mean, and we all go down the rabbit hole, but maybe less. And so this gives us power because we all have the ability to observe ourselves. And when we feel something uncomfortable, we can think about our thinking. And another really fascinating thing is that reaction takes 90 seconds. So if you're triggered and you're pissed or whatever it is that happens, if you literally time yourself for 90 seconds, that feeling will go away. And so within that 90 seconds, you can breathe, you can walk, you can meditate, you can distract yourself, you can turn on the radio. You don't even have to do anything more than know that if you wait 90 seconds, that's that whole adage, count to 10. That's where that comes from. And so we can observe ourselves instead of engaging in fear and anxiety, and we can pay attention when we get revved up, and we can literally change our reactions. And that negative reaction, it's called a negativity bias, that is designed to save our lives. That immediate, like, oh my God, is that a lion who's going to eat me? But we don't like really need that now. We don't really have lions. The lion is someone cutting you off in traffic or whatever it is. And so we can ask ourselves, how reactive am I? Once I'm triggered, how quickly do I lash out? And how quickly do I recover? And these are things that we can work on. And we have the beautiful gift of this higher level mind, which can communicate with our limbic system. We don't have to be driven by our limbic system. We can make friends with our limbic system. And then this 90-second rule can literally change your life. If you know that, you can just even turn, and then think about what you're going to do. And you can observe your anxiety, fear, and bring it to the present moment. And we can train our brains to react differently. And the more we do it, the stronger it becomes. And when I was when I was working in prisons, I got really good at not being reactive to stuff. It was one of the best trainings I ever did. And then people started noticing it, and I'm like, yeah, you can't fuck with me, sorry. So the more you practice it, the more you know yourself, your own, weak spots or how people get to you, you can really, it's a really beautiful thing. And so your limbic system can become your friend, not your foe. And we can unentangle ourselves from what is toxic. Because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to live happy lives and be a good person and be nice and everything in a true way, not like the road to hell is paved with good intentions kind of a way, but in a real way. And so if you're interested in this stuff, there is the book. Erin, can we get the slide of the book? The other one of the whole brain one with her name. Yeah. So if you're interested, you don't have to read the book. You don't have to even be interested. But if you are interested in this stuff, there's tons of good books. But this one is particularly good because she's funny and she's clear and she makes, it's just if you want to explore that further for yourself. Are there any questions before we go into our, so we're going to be connecting this information with the golden flower thing. So, can I get the tree with the sad little arrows? Aren't they the saddest little arrows you've ever seen? But they're better than they were. So this is another way to look at the golden flower approach. And then we're going to be actually applying it where, we get triggered and we have toxic thoughts. And this is the tree of life. And it's the three parts of us. Our thoughts and our consciousness are what we're aware of. The brain and the subconscious is what we're working on. And then the non-conscious part of us is the body. And the body holds everything. Every trauma we've gone through, the body holds that. So part of healing work is helping people release those non-conscious parts of themselves. And if we have time later, and if we don't have time this time, next time we'll be talking about something called the Johari window and how we can keep expanding our non-conscious part of us. That there are tools for that. And so when we get triggered and we have toxic thoughts, usually it's like a reactive thing, and we get flipped into our false self which comes from Winnicott, who is this amazing psychotherapist. And we go into this idea that something's wrong with me. And so part of consciousness is developing a witness. The Golden Flower calls it unwinding time. That's their lingo that they use for it. And so we develop, by consciousness, we develop a witness. We do this through journeying, yoga, breath work, walking, nature, praying, playing, however we do that. And this is where this 90-second reset can come in. If you're triggered and you know it, you can say, okay, I'll just wait 90 seconds and then decide how to. It takes us out of that immediate reactive thing. And then so we transform these toxic thoughts into a negative thought. And this is why I hate all that power of positive thinking stuff, because negative thoughts are helpful and it can open us up to this idea of not what's wrong with me, but what is wrong here. And then we can inquire about what, like be curious instead of reactive. And then we can track our emotions, listen to our feelings, listen to this negative feedback as some kind of a warning. It's useful. It's useful. Am I really pissed off because this person cut me off because I'm always late? Well, that might be something for me to look at rather than always being pissed off at people who cut me off. Because if I'm not late, then, I'm driving slow, they can go by, who cares? So that is, so we can turn this toxic trigger into a useful negative feedback loop. And then we can listen to that and develop healthy feedback loops. And then create good boundaries and good self-care, close our power leaks and fill ourselves with light. They always say light comes in where the cracks are. I must be very filled with light. No, but so, the cracks are actually useful for us, because by us understanding that something's off, we can then figure out. And then what starts out as a toxic trigger becomes a trigger for joy. And that's part of the shamanic way. It's not like, oh, you have to just become another slump. Blah, blah, blah. It's about ecstatic living. It's about being fully yourself and enjoying your life. That's what it's about, rather than necessarily conformity. Maybe we have to conform. It's not like conformity is bad, but it's about knowing oneself. And by knowing oneself, like that Greek thing, know thyself, then we can be ourselves in the world and live joyful lives and help other people live joyful lives, or not, other people do what they want. But what's important is that we're in our own space with that. So are there any questions about that? Is that pretty clear? So, so can I get the backwards flowing method slide, Aaron? The Secret of the Golden Flower is such an amazing text, but it's a little bit hard to understand. It's a little weird if you don't understand it. And the core of it is this thing called the backwards flowing method, which is exactly what we just talked about, but they use other language and it's more poetic than. And with the backwards, the Golden Flower is an ancient Taoist text, and it's called Inner Alchemy. So it's about, inner alchemy means changing our brains from the inside out. So they're using inner alchemy for those two ways. We can grow new brain cells, or we can help our brain cells connect better with the other ones. And they talk about an internal wheel that vertically aligns with the spine. So we're going to be working with that, with this today, to see if we can tap into that. But it can be helpful to know what you're looking for when you're, and it's called a radiating spiral structure that vibrates with intuition and mystery. So it enables us to be in the present tense, be ourselves, and co-create our life to work better. And so this backwards flowing method, they call it unwinding time. We do it through journeying, yoga, meditation, profound introspection, breath work helps develop the double. So the double is another word for the spirit guide or spirit animals. So they're calling it a double. So it's just a language thing. And so this helps develop the double, which is the subtle body that exists in the unconscious. And the double holds the ability of shamanic flight and the transcendence of our morality. It's supposed to be mortality, but probably morality too. And so we focus our attention in both worlds and move beyond the duality so that the waking self can dream the double and the double can dream the waking self. So that's the golden flower way of talking about what we just talked about with the tree and all that. So in other words, we're developing the witness and our ability, especially knowing the 90-second rule, to not just be immediately reactive to everything. We can think about how we're thinking instead of just reacting, and then we can become more proactive rather than reactive and build our true self rather than build our false self. And so this idea of unwinding time, that's what that means. It's like by doing that, you're not caught in linear time. You're stepping outside of linear time for 90 seconds. And rather than just being in that 97 reactive thing, if we can just step back from that, then we can literally step into it's a crucial time for self-reflection. And the double holds the ability of shamanic flight and transcendence. And so we strengthen our ability to work with our power animals and our spirit guides by doing that, because they can help us by giving us information. So it's a way to work with these things. And honestly, in my prison work, this was the most valuable thing I taught them, because by understanding that, these prisoners would get into trouble, do the same stupid thing over and over again. And the guard's a jerk and he's a sadist and whatever. But it's like, but then think about how to manage it. And it was really profound to see what a profound effect this had on people's ability. And, their life sucks and they're in jail and it's terrible, but at least they're, it's not, it helps them co-create their world to be better. And interestingly, sometimes my work in prisons was easier than my work with these really super high-end clients I work with, because these people in prison, they know they're screwed, they know they're stuck. So in a way, those cracks give them a lot of light. It's really interesting. And it's that whole thing of life is not what we think it is. It's when we're busy doing something else. So we are going to be working with this, and we're going to be doing an actual journey meditation. And could I get the body as temple slide, Erin? I'll send this to you because this is a part of it. And here in this body are the sacred rivers. Here are the sun and the moon, as well as the pilgrimage places. I have not encountered another temple as blissful as this, my own body. So that's part of this work, is to have our body be a temple of peace and joy and harmony, and not be in this triggered toxic thing. And we're human, so we'll always be, whatever. But there is this possibility to connect with the inner pilgrimage into our bodies. And maybe some of us like to also go on outer pilgrimages to rivers or holy places. But another level of this, really a deeper level, is that we can do this inside of ourselves, whether we're high-end wealthy people, or we're in prison, or we're just kind of normal, regular people like all of us. There's this possibility that we can create, in shamanism, it's called creating your light body. And so there's a shamanic group in Mexico. And the belief in that group is when you hit 60, you are at the peak, baby. You are at the top of your game. And all the 60-year-olds are the fastest runners and the greatest athletes. Very interesting. We have a different mythology in our culture. We have a very youth and all that kind of stuff. So it's fascinating that's part of what's interesting about working with indigenous cultures is they have other mythologies than we do. And some of them are, open up possibilities. And then that's, because all the medicines or most of the medicines we have come from the rainforest. They come from shamans talking directly to the plants, tell them directly. And then the scientist comes in and, does all that. And that's important too. It's not like it's not important. When I lived in Connecticut, I used to have all these cool healing gardens and stuff. And I used to give these workshops, and, I'd invite people to have the plants talk to them and stuff. And like if someone had a heart problem, they would go to the foxglove, which is where digitalis comes. If someone had allergies, they go to the nettles. So it was real. And it was really empowering for people to directly have that. And then later they're told, oh yeah, that's the right thing. But that's a very different experience than being told ahead of time. So that's also part of this work. And it's part of becoming more self-referencing. Like everyone can tell you something, but if you have this different experience, it holds validity. And it's part of releasing that hold that our culture has on us, that our parents have on us, and that we can get to a deeper place and be truly as in charge of our life as is possible. And that's the goal anyway. So now, are there any questions before we go on? Because now we're going to actually apply this stuff to what we're doing.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is the body as a temple part of the golden flower?
It's part of the golden flower. Yeah. It's part of honoring our bodies as sacred temples rather than intentionally or unintentionally attacking our bodies when we're in a toxic, stressed place. So it's that possibility that no matter what happens to us, no matter how triggered we are, that we can keep our bodies as a sacred temple and not, so many illnesses are from stress and stress induced. So that's part of the golden flower thing, is to create this light body. And that's part of the shamanic journey, is that we are literally creating light bodies. And that, I think, is why these amazing healings happen, which are completely medically, it doesn't happen to me so much now because doctors don't hate me so much the way they used to. But it used to be like doctors would like yell at me, and it would be like, because the idea that someone can heal themselves is just such a terrible thought to them, with their authority and stuff like that. It's not as bad anymore. And then of course they call me in all the cases they can't heal. And it's like, great, whatever. The point is to get to that deeper place within ourselves. And sometimes we do need to withstand stress, trauma triggered. I was talking to Kanda earlier about one of my neighbors had a sign that said Black Labs, Labs matter, with the dog, a picture of a black Labrador. And I would be so pissed off when I'd walk by the sign. I was insane. I'm very involved in Black Lives Matters and all this stuff. And so I had to really work on myself before I talked to her. And I really got to a good place. And I had the most amazing conversation with this woman, where she actually heard what I was saying. But it's because I came at her not from my reactive, justified, pissed off place. I came to her from this other place where I allowed her. And one of the things I had to do before I talked to her, I said, it's her property. If she wants to keep that sign up, that's what she's going to do. I had to let go of that. I had to let go of action in the world, because I'm so action in the world oriented. So I said, all right, this is about non-action. This is about being. This is about communicating. Not only did she hear me, because she ended up being remarkably, it took a while, believe me. Now, I gave her the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. So she's really like educating herself. So so that's just an actual example in the action. And it took me about 3 weeks of rage and then to be able to talk to her, because I knew I needed to be not in the place I was. And so, and then of course she took the sign down, but it wasn't even about that for me. It was more about having a conversation with someone who doesn't know what they're talking about and thinks something's funny. And it was just misguided. And she saw she was misguided. I never said that. That's up for her, and it's that whole thing of separating me from other people. What's my work? What's your work? What's God's work? That's part of it too. And if we just all do our own work, then we can separate out from being triggered or pissed off. And the whole idea that we can be triggered and pissed off and it can lead us to bliss. Our amygdala is our friend. We don't have to be at war with ourselves. We can use these things to grow ourselves and hopefully help other people grow, and now this woman, wants to be my best friend. I don't really want her as my best friend, but it's very sweet that there was an amazing opening, which I didn't go into it with that expectation. I just went into it with the desire to communicate constructively. And so and I did a lot of journeying and a lot, my power animals helped me, and all the tools that we're talking about, really, really helped me be effective with this woman who I wanted to kill. And now I kind of like her, so it's interesting to have that shift. And I'd much rather kind of like my neighbor than want to kill my neighbor. That's the world I want to live in. I want to live in a place of true diversity, true include, not this bullshit other thing that other people are into. I just, so, and how for each of us to be in that place and connect with that place is part of the purpose of doing this, what the Golden Flower calls the inner alchemy work, that we can literally change our brain. Now science agrees with us that we can change our brain cells, but these, ancient texts knew that. They just used they use the backwards flowing time as that, and it's more poetic in a way to think of it that way. But the idea of that unwinding, we can unwind ourselves and then rewind ourselves. In shamanism, it's called dismemberment and rememberment. So no matter how horrible the traumas are, how awful things are, as I said, when I worked in prisons, I mean, it's pretty awful in there, especially those high security places with all that wire and everyone's so mean and crazy. But, there are ways to, in the most horrible situations, to, or someone like Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, that's one of the most moving books. I mean, he lived through Auschwitz, his parents were killed. And he went through that experience and came out with this idea that the most important thing is the meaning of our lives. And what do we have as the meaning of our lives? For me, it's all about healing, healing, healing. That's all I care about. For someone else, they're a professional athlete and that's what they're into, or someone's an artist, and, and how to live that way and live harmoniously with other people and use this negative rage, toxic energy, not to kill ourselves or kill other people, but to really communicate effectively with people. So, are there any questions or thoughts before we go into our actual doing this stuff? Okay, so our question's going to be, usually we just have more, more people can have, the question they want. Just because we're working with this golden flower thing, we're going to be asking specifically about that. And I wanted to read a couple more things. This book is amazing. There's a lot of golden flower books. I'll give you the thing for it. I won't even go into, yeah, and that's the new cover. So there's a lot of other translations too, and everyone fights, so their translation is better. And I don't know. This is the one I've worked with and I like, but there are other translations too. And I just want to read you a couple of things because I think it really exemplifies it. By concentrating the thoughts, one can fly. By concentrating the desires, one falls. So that's another way of saying we get triggered, we have toxic thoughts. If we can concentrate our thoughts and take that moment, the 90-second reset moment, rather than just following our reactive self, that opens a whole world of possibility. And only through contemplation and quietness does true intuition arise, for that backwards flowing method is necessary. So again, that's what this backwards flowing method is about. I'm just going to read a couple more quotes. Fixating contemplation is indispensable, but one must examine where the thought is, where it began, and where it fades out. So that is also another way of talking about healing work, because in working with clients, which some of us want to do and some of us just want to work personally, and it's all fabulous, it's like it's really interesting to help people track, where did this thought come from? And so telling someone, oh, be grateful, enjoy your life. If they have this trauma stored in their body, you're telling them something they can't do. And so that's where healing work comes in. And it also explains we really all heal ourselves. No one is healing us. And my experience is working with people who are really open. Those are the people who have the miracles happen. Open about their dark side, open about how they really feel, or what, whatever it is. We all have that. We all have our imperfect pasts that we have to deal with, and some of us have very imperfect pasts. And then this is the final thing I'll read from the book. But I'm also reading it to you just so you can get a gist of the language, because it's a little archaic, but it's kind of poetic too. The whole relationship is now reversed. If one wants to penetrate the more subtle regions by this method, one must first see to it that body and heart are completely controlled. And what they mean is that earlier one of the body is temple. Like, that's really important, that our body is our temple, and that we respect our body, and that we don't go, because that really stresses out our body. It's not good for our body to be like that. It's better go and wait 90 seconds.
Marina,
Yes.
could you reread the imperfect pass quote, the one that,
The previous one?
yes, it's,
Let's see. About the flying and the. Let's see.
Could you reread the one about flying also?
Do you want me to just reread all of them? I mean, it's so poetic, isn't it?
yes, I love it.
Love this stuff. I'll just reread them all. And
Okay.
just, by concentrating the thoughts, one can fly. By concentrating the desires, one falls. Isn't that fascinating?
Yes.
Only through contemplation and quietness does true intuition arise. For that, the backwards flowing method is necessary. For us to fly and not fall. So we do this for ourselves, but by doing this for ourselves, we're actually helping heal the world. But we don't do it for that reason. Like, I didn't go talk to that woman to change her mind. I talked to that woman because I had a need to talk to that woman about her sign, that I had a need to do that. And by my giving up the idea that I'd have any kind of effect on her, I think led to me being effective with her. Because we all know what we're doing. We know when someone's coming at us and saying, oh, you should need me. And I mean, it's like, that doesn't work. It doesn't work on me when people do that. Oh, you should learn how to chill out. It's like, nah, right? I mean, it's like it doesn't work that way. We have to be in our own lives and our own experiences. And we have such different experiences. The color of our skin affects our experiences. And there's structural inequity in our system. And that's how to deal with that, right? How to not just be a part of that, but be part of something bigger where things can flow better and be harmonious. And fixating contemplation is indispensable. But one must examine where the thought is, where it began, and where it fades out. So that's the whole thing. Like, we're always stuck with our history, but our reaction to our history, we can change. And all the suffering we go through in our history are those cracks where the light can go in, because by our suffering, we understand other people who are suffering. And so that's why I think my work with these really wealthy people is really hard, because they're not suffering at all. I mean, they are in a bigger way, but it's interesting for me anyway, because I like working with all kinds of different people. And it's always different than you think it is. At least for me, it's always like, wow, this is fascinating. I mean, and I believe we all should have as much money as we can. And, I'm not against anything like that, but it is interesting to see the dark side of things sometimes. So it's like, oh, wow. Now we have worked from the outside on what is within. Now we can stay in the center and rule what is external. Body and heart are completely controlled. That one is quite free and at peace, letting go of all entanglements, untroubled by the slightest excitement, and with the heavenly heart exactly in the middle. So the heavenly heart is the golden flower. It's another word for the golden flowers. We're developing a heavenly heart and a heavenly mind, and we're working our third eye, we're accessing other realms of conscious, non-ordinary reality for the purpose of healing. And I've mentioned that before, that's the difference between sorcery and shamanism, is that shamanism is all about healing and sorcery is all about powers and getting cool crystals and all that stuff. So, and all indigenous healers do both. So that's another interesting thing too, is to understand that's part of that structure, and it's not right or wrong. It just is. And it helps explain certain things sometimes. A lot of times in an indigenous culture, there's this tribunal and there are these elders, and the elders are, no offense, they're like fucking assholes just because they've, and so it just seems like once you get a bunch of people and you get a group and there's a hierarchy, I don't know. It seems like things really go south sometimes. And I was talking to someone about meditating, and she was feeling very like she's a really bad meditator, but she's actually a really good meditator. And meditating is just a very flawed kind of experience. And I think that, at least for me, I've never found, I was talking to this one client about how I've never been even though I've been meditating twice a day since 1970, that's a lot of meditating, right? I've never been part of any meditation group or anything like the one, Erica, and I tried to join this group, Shambhala. Of course, he's fucking all the girls. It's the same old thing. It's just so, I don't know. You get a bunch of people together.
I actually feel really traumatized by that group.
I know, I'm so sorry. I went once and I was like, these people suck. And then I said, that's probably me. It's probably my toxic thought. Then I went twice. I said, well, maybe these people are great and I suck, but it's not helping me. So
what is it? It's a meditation group.
It's a meditation group in Northampton.
Ah.
And it's actually like it's an international group, but the head guru turned out to be just very abusive. And
a guy or a girl?
It's always a guy.
So, yeah.
A guy. It was a guy.
Girls are abusive, but they do it differently.
Marina, is that Shambhala?
Yeah.
And so
It sounds
now they're
familiar.
Lions Roar. I wonder if that's the same. I'll have to
The
research.
Lions Roar, I think, is the literary group.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
started subscribing to that.
Well, I
Okay.
think that it's not only Shambhala. I think it's more
Global.
general.
Right.
Like I like that publication.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I do.
And
I
it's just this particular group was, I don't know. It's just, if you find a great meditation group, tell me about it. I haven't found. So, and it
Moral
just,
of the story: meditate at home.
So, I mean, it's just it's sort of sad, but it's just sort of the way of the world. So, yeah. So any other questions or thoughts about this? Because we're going to be going into our actual golden flower meditation group. And as I said, you can get the book if you're into it. I mean, I love this crazy language and stuff. Not everyone does. I find it very poetic, and I'd much rather think about it as a backwards flowing method than I'm growing new brain cells on my brain. I mean, that's just less appealing to me personally. So I like the poetic, artistic way of working with this stuff. But it is cool. When I was studying science in the 70s, the electronic microscope came out, and everything everyone had been taught was wrong. It was so funny.
Wait, what was that?
The electronic microscope was just coming out when I
Oh, okay.
and then all these theories were wrong because they were theories. It wasn't the electronic microscope. You could actually see things. It wasn't some person pontificating about something. So that was one of the things that made me not want to do it anymore. It's like, what else is what else is wrong here? They make it like, oh, it's science. And believe me, I believe in science. I'm not a non-believer of science, but.
Well, if I could interject on that point, when I was in nursing school, they were pretty straightforward about, by the time you buy these textbooks, they're already out of date. So they're a little more realistic lately with, things are changing so fast all the time. We're learning new things all the time that, as soon as, before the textbooks are even printed, they're already out of date. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's always changing, but these ancient texts don't change. So that to me is interesting. And, and I love the Dalai Lama always says, if science says one thing and my stuff is different, I'm willing to listen to science. So there is that middle way of being open and listening. And, yeah, I mean, and a lot of things have as terrible as things are now. When I was thinking about going to medical school, and I worked with this doctor and published this paper, so I spent a day at Harvard Medical School. I was supposed to go to Harvard Medical School, and I mean, people freak out, including Beth. When I told her this, they were doing vivisections on dogs. And so they have dogs like this, howling in pain. And they're doing vivisections. And I said, those dogs are feeling pain. I start weeping, And they're like, oh, no, they don't feel pain.
It's unbelievable.
And I literally walked out. I could not do that. And this doctor I'd worked with, he was so angry at me. But it's the best thing I ever did. I cannot do that. I cannot be that. I felt like such a loser at that point in my life. My life was over. Everything was going to Harvard Medical School. And it's funny because Eric, when he was in medical school, he says, Mom, I think it's good you didn't go to medical school. So, there's people can tell you things. People could say those dogs aren't feeling pain. I'll start crying right now. Those dogs are feeling pain. And now they don't do vivisections anymore. So that's good, right? So things do improve, but that's, now I look at, I'm like, oh God, I had my own self-referencing thing. Because I remember when I was working with Dr. Katsius and injecting mice and stuff like that, and he would find me weeping over the mice, and he'd be like, are you sure you should do this work? I'm like, no, I'm cool. I'm tough. You know what I mean? And then I was like, maybe I shouldn't, maybe someone else should do that. And not that, yeah.
I get you, because when I was taking prereqs for nursing school, because I had a different bachelor's already, but I had to take some prereqs. we dissected already dead cats, and some of them were pregnant. And that killed me. And they weren't like regular cats. They're like specially raised to be killed, to be dissected. So the whole thing, it was still awful, but at least they weren't being vivisected.
Yeah, that's a line I can't cross. The whole
No.
vivisection thing is, and the world is caught up with that, so that's good. So any other thoughts or questions before we do our journey? So get yourself comfortable, sit down, lie down.
Do we have a question?
The question is, how can I, and you can ask whatever question you want, but my suggestion is, how can I best work with the secret of the golden flower? So how can your power animals specifically help you with this specific way of working? It's called the backwards flowing method. That could be another question. How can I best work with this backwards flowing method? How can I best work with the secret of the golden flower? Because we're working in this particular segment of the training with this specific text and inner alchemist meditation. And I personally have worked with this for literally decades, and it has saved my ass many times. It's really powerful. The secret of the goal. And then Aaron, do we have a slide with the information of the name of the book and all that stuff of the golden flower thing?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, no, I think it's on this.
It's on the tree thing, or it's on here?
Let me see.
Right.
It would be the translated and explained by her.
Yeah.
So that's what you need to get this, but there's a lot of other translations. I'm not saying this is the right one. It's just the one I have personally found most useful. And I'll send you all these slides so you don't have to write down anything or worry about anything. But if you're interested, and then I have quite a few different translations. I find it fun to read the same thing in different translations. But I think I'm just kind of a weird freak that I like doing that. But if you are,
I disagree with you on that point, because I enjoy it too. Marina and I have been occasionally in our work together separately. We talk about passages from the book, and she'll read her version and I'll read my version, and they both, it's almost like rephrasing something to see it in another perspective or see another facet of it or something. And I love it too. I think it's really beneficial, because there are times that I like her version better, or it makes more sense, or has more resonance for me. And then there are other times that my version does. And it's the same for you too, right, Marina? You've said that before.
right. I think I have 5 different versions that I work
Damn.
with. But this is the one, the Wilhelm one is I personally like the best. But there are a lot of different versions of it. So I just want to let you know that. And you might like another version better. But the main thing is this backwards flowing thing, which is what we've talked about. That's what the method is. That's the tool from this.
Mine's Wilhelm also. It's just a newer one, I think.
Right. Because there's other actual translations by other actual people that I find helpful to look at, but I enjoy it. But yeah.
He's the one that translated the I Ching also.
Yes. And Jung was all into him. He and Carl Jung. And I find it very, the criticism is of this, which is interesting. I'll just tell you the criticism is that it's funny because Malcolm's going through this. Malcolm's in this PhD program at Harvard, and he's trying to not lose his mind because they're also like hyper intellectual, and it's like so boring to be that way for me. The criticism with this new translation that's come out is that Jung didn't understand because he had this other translation. So he made it psychological. And if he'd understood, he wouldn't have done that or something like that. So, you know, people like to have their translation be the best translation. So, who knows? But it's interesting to, you know, and then it also, you know, has to do with just our personal interest, how deep
It does, but also the arrogance of humankind. You know, a friend of mine at a college graduation, Maya Angelou, spoke, and I think it was she, and she talked about this poem she had written about a tree and how like all these like literature buffs, you know, analyzed it, made it into all this other stuff. And she said, I just wrote a poem about a tree, you know. So who are they to say what Jung knew or didn't know? Anyway.
Right. But I'm just, yeah, it's interesting. And I think, what is it they say? Information is power. So if we're educated and we know stuff, it helps. So any other thoughts or comments before we journey? And the question is, if you would like that question to be, how can my power animals best help me with, you call it backward flowing method or secret of the golden flower? So you can either lie down or sit up. You can just close your eyes. You can, I have a candle lit, so you don't need to light a candle, but it's really important in this work to always have a lit candle. And so just take a moment and breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Let your body just be held by Mother Earth. And just contemplate for a moment the complexity of suffering. The idea of until we can deal with hate and get to the root of fear and suffering, that's what the golden flower is about, is getting to the root, to getting to a deeper level of what is suffering. And that's what the shamanic healing work is about. It's about having new tools and new ways of understanding our suffering or other people's sufferings. And so just keep breathing in and breathe out. And just allow yourself to have the thought that I am not my thoughts, that I am not the field. I am seeking the field beyond the field that expands. And just take a moment to appreciate yourself and your dedication to reach for deeper truth, to reach for expanding your understanding of the nature of consciousness. So just allow yourself to just take a moment of self-appreciation. And just keep breathing in and breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, and just allowing your body to relax. The sacred temple of your body, the sacred rivers, the pilgrimage places, it's all within you. All the answers are within you. And then start to approach your shamanic entrance. And then go through your entrance. And you'll enter the tunnel. And it'll bring you down, down, down into the earth, into Mother Earth. And then you'll hit the bottom of your tunnel. and you do. And your exit is your entrance into your shamanic world. And your power animals, your spirit guides. For some people, it isn't animals. So your spirit guides will be there. And just allow yourself to be greeted by these forces that are there for you, available for you. And just let your power animals decide whether you stay in the lower world or you go to the upper world. Just ask them where to be as you ask your question. So from either the lower world or the upper world, start formulating your question for your power animals of how can I best work with this backwards flowing method? How can I best work with this ancient Taoist text of inner alchemy, known as the secret of the golden flower? So just keep that question as a mantra, as a place to put your mind as you receive information from your power animals in whatever way works best for you. How can I work best with this backwards flowing method? How can I work best with the secret of the golden flower? And just allow yourself an opening between you and your power animals and this ancient text and the tree of life. Just allow yourself to grow your light body and expand yourself to receive the information. How can I work best with my power animals with the backwards flowing method? How can I work best with my power animals with the secret of the golden flower? So just allow yourself to receive information. In a few moments, we're going to be leaving this space, but no, you can always return. This is a space of cosmic time. It's always there for you. So even though we're returning now, you can always come back and get any other information, but just open the space for any more information for your spirit guides to share with you before you leave for today. And then thank your power animals and start retracing all your steps. Don't worry about every single step. Just generally retrace your steps. And then you'll approach your tunnel. So now the exit of the shamanic world is the entrance into your tunnel. And so you'll go up the tunnel and then out your entrance. And then take whatever time you want to take notes or whatever. And then we'll be going to breakout groups Keep continuing if you're, wanting to capture any information. And the breakout groups are going to be Elle, Kanda, Katie, and Roslyn in one group. And Beth, Erica, and Karen in another group.
You should be able to join now.
You writing an outline for something.
Really?
You're wearing a baseball hat and you're like outlining something.
A baseball hat. What color is the
Yeah.
baseball hat by chance?
I want to say red, but I don't actually know.
All right. A
Yeah.
vision. So waking vision, yeah? Or where's it a sleeping
Yeah.
vision?
No, I have these weird, like, it's kind of like an auditory, but you see what I'm hearing kind of thing, which is weird because my mom's schizophrenic, so it's not,
Oh, right.
No.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
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 Oh,
Well-
Nelly.
Huh. Well, that's cool because Marita, didn't you once? I don't know if it was a vision or something you saw on a journey that you said something about me writing. I don't remember really. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Something
Vaguely.
about writing. So I wonder if those are kind of connected.
Hmm.
You're outlining something, yeah,
Yeah, making an outline for a book.
maybe. Or
Cool.
class, yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
could be a lot of different things. Cool, man. When was that that happened?
Like a half hour ago.
Oh,
Yeah. I think
Huh.
it's probably because you were talking about you liked you like talking to Marina and having different perspectives and then thinking about it. So that's probably what ignited my
yeah, ignited that.
imagination. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
Does anybody else want to share? Erin, can we have the Sojourner Truth slide, please? Part of shamanism is being connected to the earth where you are. It's very earth oriented. And Sojourner, we are very blessed by Sojourner Truth, lived in this area. And so I feel her energy a lot. She's just a remarkable human being, born a slave, escaped with her infant baby, was the first woman to get her son back from a white slave owner. I mean, just a remarkable woman. And so these quotes: truth is powerful and will prevail. I feel safe even in the midst of my enemies. And I find that really interesting because that's another aspect of the golden flower work, is by doing that work, we actually keep ourselves safe in the midst of our enemies. And I definitely had that experience when I was doing prison work because I was really not feeling safe sometimes. And I'd do the golden flower thing. Everything would just work out. It was just amazing. So that's another thing that's obviously she was deeply tuned into these forces that are available. And that is another aspect of that backwards flowing time, that 90-second reset. We have a lot of power. And if we are in truth and living from that place, and if our desire is to truly be of service, and then a lot of power comes to us, and that's where miracles happen. And through the healing work, a lot of experiences I've had, like this is scientifically impossible for this thing to happen, you know, but there's like a deeper level of possibility. And as humans, if we are feeling creatures who then think, if we know that and we operate that way, it can give us a lot of ways, even if everyone around us is in a different place than we are. And I swear to God, when I was talking to my neighbor about her black lab's bed or something, I swear to God, I saw Sojourner Truth sitting over there helping me talk to this woman, you know? So, you know, that's another thing that can happen is these forces can come to us that are helpful to say the right words and feel that truth and power. And it, you know, the whole thing about shamanism, it's power, but it's power for healing, not power over, not hierarchical, not for money, even though it might be how you make a living. You know, it's just like, it's like a different way of living. And it's a wonderful way of living, because then you draw people who are like that, and, you know, all the crazy motherfuckers can do whatever they want with whatever. But you know what I mean? It's sort of like, all right, fine. That's your opinion. So I wanted to, in our remaining time, go over a couple things. I want to go over, can we get the agenda slide, Erin, please? So we're doing divination, and that's what we've been doing. Another aspect of the golden flower work, it enables you to see the future. By doing that backwards turning mind, by 90-second reset, it's like, and that's happened to me a lot. I'm sure it's happened to you guys. Where you know what someone's going to say before they say it. And so if you're in that place, you can predict and not be blindsided. It keeps you like a step ahead. So that's the divination aspect of it. There's a lot of different tools for divination, but the golden flower is one of those tools. So knowing that, then if one is in that, you know that it, like kind of like what you were saying, Elle, that was an example of that. Like you just have this vision or whatever, and you know, next time Beth will be with her.
Making a list.
She'll have a published book by next time.
Or get invited to a baseball game.
So, and then next time we're going to be talking about helping others heal. That's fascinating, interesting. There's lots of cool stuff about that surrogate work. Like if people, I've done a lot of work, like if people are incarcerated, or, you know, you can do this surrogate thing to work with people, and it's cool. There's just a lot of things that we can do to help no matter what. So that's what we're doing next time. And then the final one will be integration. And I'm also going to be starting an advanced group. So just let me know if you want to be part of that. Can we have the next slide, Erin? The dates for next year? June of this year will be the completion of year 1. And then year 2, because this is a 3-year training. And then once you've done the 3-year training, if you want to, you can be certified energy medicine healer, and you can become a minister in this church, because legally, if you do this work, you work as a minister, which is hilarious because I basically hate all religions. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's how you work legally in this country as a minister. And there's this amazing church started, I think I mentioned it, by this Roman Catholic priest who went rogue and so he started this amazing church and he's done amazing things. You can also, if you don't want to bother with that, and it's $150 a year to be part of that. If you don't want to do that, you can just get one of those universalist things. It doesn't really matter, but it's cool to be part of a community that's actually doing this work. And he's just the coolest guy. And he's really helped me out a lot, because one of the things you can do when you're certified, you can marry people. You can go to prisons if you're crazy like me and you want to do that. You can go to mental hospitals. It gives you a way into places like that, into institutions. And in marrying, you legally can marry people. And I've done quite a few marriages and they're wonderful, moving and everything. And I did one in Boston, and oh my God, Boston's just basically very corrupt. And so, Ray really helped me with the complex paperwork I had to go through to marry this couple. It was mind blowing. So he's really there and he really knows, and he's, if you want to do this work, it's a great resource. And you have to have the equivalent of Michael Harner's 3-year training program, because that's where he got. So that's why it's a 3-year program. So
What is his name? Ray?
Yeah, Ray Bauer. And it's called I never remember the name of the church, which is the Circle of the Sacred Earth.
Church.
Yeah.
What is it?
And you and Karen are already part of that if you want to be that. So we can talk about that later. If you want,
Yeah.
because you can do that. And then anyway, and so next year's schedule is going to be a little different. We're going to be meeting in a group for 4 sessions for the 4 seasons, basically. So we'll start November with the fall, and then we'll do winter, and then we'll do spring, and we'll do summer. And the seasons and the directions are things which we'll go into more, because those are other tools and templates for healing that are helpful to work with. And then for people who want to, I'm going to be offering individual work with what we learned. So we'll be having less group work and more individual work with a structure. And then year 3 will be the same thing. Will be 4 different sessions with the possibility of individual work if you want that. So, and I just want to give you those dates for next year in case. And they're all Sundays, and it's all 10 to 12. So it's just a continuation, as well as I'm going to be starting an advanced group for people who really want to do this on a deeper level. And so if you do want to do that, let me know, and then we can go into those dates and what that is. So are there any thoughts or questions with that before?
I'm excited.
I'm so excited.
I am too. I want to do all of it. I'm telling you right now, all of it.
Me too, Marina.
And Marina, is there any fee for continuing?
No, there isn't. There
Oh.
isn't. Because honestly, the reason I'm doing that is my own personal need, because I personally get pissed off, very reactive, but I've meditated on it. If I start some free thing, and then all of a sudden I have to start paying money, it just does not work for me. And I started this and didn't charge for my own sanity, because I wasn't sure I could handle the Zoom and the groupie thing and all the stuff. But I'm actually kind of loving it, and I'm seeing the I didn't even know if this stuff could be taught this way. Just so I needed to keep myself out, So anyway, so this whole thing is for free, and also it's experimental for me. It makes it easier for me. I'm less stressed out because I'm like, oh well, they're not paying me, so if I screw up, they'll forget. They have to forgive me. They have no choice. So
And will it continue on Zoom?
Yeah, yeah. So this is me, and then I'll be offering stuff here too once we open up, and ceremonies and Vision Quest and all the other crazy stuff that we do. There's so many cool tools, and it's really a matter of, some of us have alliances, like Elle has this astrology thing, that is just so beautiful. And as long as Elle's talking to me about it, I feel it. But other people talk to me about astrology, I'm like, so we each have different abilities to connect with different tools. And sometimes people have a gift of having that connection, and they can help other people connect as well. So Erin, can you do the Johari slide, please? So this is another way of looking at everything we've talked about. And it's called the Johari window. It was invented by Joseph and Harry, and I will send you the slides, so with all the info about it. And they developed this tool of consciousness. And so the upper left-hand corner, the arena, that's the open part of us, the part of us that knows ourselves, and other people know us too. And there's no mystery. You go to the grocery store and you buy an orange, and you're someone buying an orange, and the person is selling you an orange, and that's what that relationship is. Then there's a part of us that is not known by others, but we know ourselves. Like, I go buy that orange from that woman, and I really like her, and I would like for her to be a friend of mine because I really like this woman selling me the orange. But she doesn't know I like her, right? Because she's selling oranges to lots of people. So then I might, open up with something like, oh, you want to have tea sometime, or something like that. And so that's an example of that, I release my facade of, I'm just buying this orange and I don't care about who you are. Oh, I do care. Let's get together. So there's that aspect of it. Then there's the aspect of our blind spot. And that is the beautiful part of being in community and doing this kind of work, where, and I know we all know this, there's parts of us that are known by everybody, but we don't know it ourselves. And that's where good friends and intimacy comes in. Where someone says, I know you think you're looking good, but that hat looks really stupid on you. I mean, it could be superficial, it could be deep, or are you aware that you're being really bossy and obnoxious right now? I am not. You know what I mean? So we all have blind spots. And so that's part of having loving, nurturing relationships, it has to do with trust and developing that. And then there's the unknown part of us, which is just the mystery. And that is another aspect of doing this work. And part of their model was by opening up the blind spots and the facade parts of us, we can tap deeper into the mystery, and we can become bigger and better people. And we're not just stuck in a stagnant place, that we can expand who we are and grow. So that it's just another model to look at what we're going through. And as I said, I'll send you all these slides, and you can, different things are different, have different interest levels for different people.
Are all of these on YouTube?
Yeah, all these sessions are on YouTube too.
And then are they that, like, can anybody view them on YouTube?
Anybody
Probably.
want to, I guess so, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there's not a time limit on it, because that's another money game thing people do that I'm just not into. So, and believe me, I make tons of money. I don't need to play these games. It's not how I roll. So I'm just trying to figure out my way and how to be with all this crazy stuff that we're in. So are there any other questions or thoughts before we start? It just turned 12 o'clock. Perfect timing.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Where does the Johari window come from, or where could is it in a book, or can I find more information on
When
it?
I send you the flyer, when I send you the slide, it'll have all that stuff on there.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. I love it personally. It's one of the tools I use a lot when I'm working with clients. It's like, oh, they don't know that I know. I think we all have that. Everyone knows, but the person that. So fascinating. If we could just kindly help each other with these things, we'd all be so much better off. But we're all here doing it, our backwards flowing method and our spirit guides and Mother Earth, Father Sky, and the cracks come in through the lights and that Japanese thing with the gold, whatever that's called. They make gold out of the cracks. And so no matter how crazy you are, messed up you are, there's hope. The more cracks, the more light, it's actually. So any other thoughts before we meet next time? Well, goody. Love everybody.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you, Marina.
Thank you
See
all
you guys
so
later.
much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good to
Love
see
you
you all.
guys.
You.
Mwah.
Bye.